Aging was never meant to be a quiet surrender. It was never written into the code of your body that strength must leak away, that energy must dim, that resilience must soften into fragility. What was written, deep in the architecture of yourselves, is something far more defiant. A capacity to adapt, a stubborn intelligence that listens to signals from your environment and decides again and again whether to repair or decay. For most of human history, the body aged slowly not because people exercised for longevity, but because life itself demanded effort, variation, and recovery. Movement was not a health choice, it was survival. Today, walking has become our last echo of that ancestral rhythm, and it is good, profoundly good. But after 60, it is no longer enough to tell your biology the full story of who you are. Walking keeps you alive. It does not, by itself, tell your cells to stay young. Inside every muscle fiber, every neuron, every mitochondrial engine burning quietly in the background, there is a constant conversation about risk and reward. Your body is not trying to make you comfortable. It is trying to make you capable. When challenge disappears, when signals flatten into sameness, the body interprets safety as stagnation. Muscles thin, bones whisper instead of sing, mitochondria downshift, producing just enough energy to get through the day, but not enough to regenerate with force. This is not failure, it is adaptation, and adaptation cuts both ways. After 60, the most dangerous thing is not movement, it is monotony. The biology of aging is not a single process, it is a cascade. Proteins lose their shape, DNA repair slows, cellular debris accumulates, inflammation simmers just below the surface. And yet none of this unfolds passively. Aging accelerates when the body stops receiving clear instructions to invest in maintenance. Walking sends a gentle signal, survive. Strength sends a stronger one, rebuild. Intensity, applied safely and intelligently, tells your genes something radical, that this organism is still required to be powerful. Deep inside your cells are sirtuins, ancient proteins sometimes called guardians of longevity. They activate under stress, good stress, caloric scarcity, physical challenge, temperature extremes. They do not respond to comfort, they respond to demand. When activated, they enhance DNA repair, improve mitochondrial efficiency, and quiet inflammatory pathways that otherwise erode tissue over time. Walking alone barely whispers to them. Resistance training speaks clearly. This is where fear often enters the room. Fear of injury, fear of being too old, fear of crossing an invisible line where effort becomes danger. But biology does not recognize birthdays. It recognizes load, recovery, and consistency. Bones become stronger when asked to bear weight. Tendons thicken when tension is introduced gradually. Muscles do not age out of growth, they age out of stimulus. Even in the 8th and 9th decades of life, properly guided strength training reverses sarcopenia, improves insulin sensitivity, and restores balance that prevents falls people mistakenly blame on age itself. Muscle is not vanity tissue, it is metabolic armor. Every contraction acts like a pharmaceutical intervention, releasing myokines that travel through the bloodstream, reducing systemic inflammation, improving brain function, and sharpening immune response. Muscle communicates with the brain, the liver, the heart. It is an endocrine organ masquerading as movement. Without it, blood sugar control falters, fat infiltrates organs, and mitochondria lose their edge. Walking preserves function. Strength preserves independence. But strength alone is not the full instruction set. The body also listens for rhythm. Light striking the retina each morning sets off a hormonal symphony, anchoring circadian clocks that govern everything from digestion to DNA repair. With age, these clocks drift, not because they must, but because light exposure becomes inconsistent. Morning sunlight is not poetic wellness advice. It is a biochemical trigger that sharpens cortisol timing, deepens sleep architecture, and increases nighttime growth hormone release when cellular repair is at its peak. Without it, sleep fragments, repair stalls, aging accelerates silently. Sleep itself is not rest, it is construction. During deep sleep, cerebrospinal fluid washes metabolic waste from the brain, including proteins associated with neurodegeneration. Mitochondria repair their membranes. Stem cells receive their marching orders. When sleep shortens or fractures, the body does not simply feel tired, it becomes older. Walking improves sleep modestly. Precision improves it profoundly. Consistent bedtimes, darkness, cool temperatures, a nervous system taught to downshift. Then there is hormesis, the paradox that small, controlled doses of stress make the organism stronger. Cold exposure sharpens mitochondrial density. Heat exposure through sauna use improves cardiovascular elasticity and mimics some effects of endurance training. Fasting, when done safely, lowers insulin, increases NAD+ availability, and initiates autophagy, the cellular recycling process that clears damaged components and replaces them with functional ones. These are not extremes. They are reminders to the body that it still lives in a world that requires resilience. Aging accelerates when life becomes too easy. This does not mean chasing discomfort for its own sake. It means choosing signals that remind your biology you are still engaged. Short bouts of higher intensity effort, tailored to your capacity. Lifting objects that require focus. Brief exposure to cold water at the end of a shower. Finishing meals earlier in the evening to allow metabolic rest. Each intervention is small. Their cumulative effect is immense. What emerges from this is not just physical change, but identity. The nervous system does not separate who you are from what you do repeatedly. When you train for strength, adapt to stress, honor sleep, and respect recovery, you are not trying to live longer. You are signaling that you are not finished. Purpose itself becomes biological. Dopamine pathways sharpen, motivation stabilizes. The brain stops preparing for decline and starts investing in continuity. Walking remains sacred. It lubricates joints, soothes the mind, and anchors daily movement. But after 60, it must be joined by signals that speak the full language of longevity. Signals that say this body is still required to adapt. Signals that keep mitochondria burning clean, muscles communicating loudly, bones standing firm, and genes awake. The future of aging is not found in avoidance, it is found in intelligent engagement, in respecting the body enough to challenge it, in understanding that decline is not a sentence, it is a response to silence. And when you replace silence with clear, intentional signals, the body listens. What most people miss is that the body is not tallying years, it is tallying signals. Every day, every choice, every repeated behavior casts a vote. Not a moral vote, not a motivational one, but a molecular one. Walk gently every day, and your body learns how to be efficient at gentleness. Ask nothing of your fast twitch fibers, and they quietly dissolve. Remove demand from balance systems, and the brain trims those neural pathways for efficiency, not cruelty. Biology is economical. It keeps what is used and discards what is not. This is not aging, it is budgeting. And so the real question after 60 is not whether movement is happening, but whether the movement is informative. Strength, when introduced intelligently, does something walking cannot. It reintroduces tension as a language. Mechanical tension is one of the most powerful anti-aging signals we know. When muscle fibers experience load, they deform slightly at the cellular level, triggering mechanotransduction, chemical signals that tell the nucleus to increase protein synthesis, reinforce connective tissue, and fortify structural integrity. This is not about lifting heavy for ego. It is about reminding your cells that collapse is not acceptable. Insulin sensitivity improves because muscle acts like a sponge for glucose, pulling sugar out of the bloodstream without requiring excess insulin. Mitochondria multiply because energy demand increases. NAD+ levels stabilize because metabolic flexibility returns. Even telomeres, the protective caps on chromosomes so often associated with aging, are better preserved in individuals who combine aerobic movement with resistance training. The body does not fear work, it fears irrelevance. Balance, too, is a conversation between challenge and trust. Falls are not caused by age, they are caused by undertrained reflexes. The vestibular system, proprioceptive feedback from the feet, and visual processing must be asked to cooperate under mild instability. Standing on one leg, carrying asymmetrical loads, moving laterally instead of forward. These simple acts recalibrate neural timing, sharpening the split-second decisions that keep a body upright when the ground shifts unexpectedly. Walking forward on flat terrain rarely asks for this cooperation. Life does. Then there is the heart, not just as a pump, but as a sensor. Cardiovascular health after 60 depends less on duration and more on variation. Brief increases in heart rate, followed by recovery, train vascular elasticity. Endothelial cells lining blood vessels respond to pulsatile flow by releasing nitric oxide, improving circulation and lowering blood pressure. This is why short bouts of brisk effort, stairs, hill climbs, controlled intervals, outperform endless sameness. The arteries remember youth when they are asked to expand and contract with purpose. Recovery is where wisdom replaces force. The aging body does not need more punishment, it needs clearer cycles. Stress followed by deep restoration, effort followed by nourishment, sleep deep enough to allow growth hormone to surge and tissues to rebuild. Protein intake sufficient to support repair, distributed evenly across meals to overcome age-related anabolic resistance. This is not optimization for athletes, it is baseline care for a system that still wants to regenerate but requires clearer permission. Fasting, when approached conservatively, sharpens this permission. Extending the overnight fast slightly, 12-14 hours, allows insulin to fall and autophagy to rise. Damaged cellular components are identified, dismantled, and recycled. Mitochondria with compromised membranes are removed, so healthier ones can take their place. This is cellular housekeeping, not deprivation. The goal is not less fuel, but cleaner engines. Cold and heat offer similar clarity. A brief exposure to cold activates brown fat, increases norepinephrine, and signals mitochondria to become more efficient. Heat exposure through sauna use elevates heart rate, improves plasma volume, and increases heat shock proteins that protect cellular structure. These are ancient stressors, once unavoidable, now optional, but still profoundly effective. The body recognizes them immediately, responding as it always has, by strengthening itself. Yet none of this works without the quiet discipline of consistency. Longevity is not built through heroic weeks followed by neglect. It is built through signals repeated until the body trusts them. Trust is biological. When the nervous system trusts that stress will be followed by recovery, it allows adaptation. When it fears chaos, it hoards energy and accelerates decline. This is why routines matter, not as rigidity, but as reassurance. Purpose weaves through all of it. The brain is not an observer of the body, it is a participant. When movement is tied to meaning, being able to lift a grandchild, travel independently, rise from the floor without assistance, the motivational circuits light up differently. Dopamine aligns with effort. Compliance becomes identity. The body senses that it is being prepared for something, not merely preserved. Walking alone keeps the door open. Adding strength, intensity, rhythm, and recovery teaches the body how to walk through it, upright, capable, unafraid. And the most radical truth is this: the body does not resist aging, it resists neglect. When given clear instructions, it responds with a loyalty that feels almost miraculous. There comes a moment, quiet, almost imperceptible, when the body decides whether it is preparing for contraction or expansion. That decision is not philosophical, it is biochemical. It is made in the language of enzymes, hormones, electrical impulses, and gene expression. And after 60, that decision becomes more sensitive, not less. The margin narrows, the feedback loops sharpen, which means your actions matter more now than they ever did before. What you are really doing when you add challenge safely is reminding your biology that the future still requires you. The mitochondria respond first. These ancient power plants, once free-living organisms that chose cooperation over extinction, adapt rapidly to demand. Ask them for more energy, and they do not complain. They multiply. They become more efficient, leak fewer free radicals, communicate more clearly with the nucleus. Energy stops feeling scarce. Fatigue loses its grip. The quiet exhaustion many mistake for normal aging reveals itself for what it is: undertrained metabolism. Inflammation begins to resolve, not because it is suppressed, but because it is no longer needed. Chronic inflammation is a signal of unresolved stress, psychological, metabolic, mechanical. When stress becomes brief and purposeful, inflammation gives way to repair. C-reactive protein drops. Joint pain softens. The immune system reallocates resources away from constant vigilance and toward precision. Healing accelerates. The brain, too, listens closely. Physical challenge increases brain-derived neurotrophic factor, a molecule that supports neuroplasticity and protects against cognitive decline. Learning new movement patterns, strength, balance, coordination, creates new neural connections, reinforcing the idea that adaptation is still the brain's primary job. Memory improves, reaction time sharpens, confidence returns, not as bravado, but as embodied certainty. This is where aging quietly reverses its posture. Not in the mirror, in the systems that matter. What emerges is not youth, but capability, and capability is far more powerful. A body that can generate force, recover from stress, regulate blood sugar, sleep deeply, and adapt to its environment is not fragile. It is resilient. Resilience is the true opposite of aging. It is the ability to absorb shock without breaking, to return to form, to stay useful to itself and others. Safety is never abandoned in this process. It is refined. Movements are controlled, progressions are gradual, recovery is honored. The goal is not to conquer the body, but to collaborate with it, to speak to it in a language it has understood for hundreds of thousands of years. Effort, variation, rest, meaning. And slowly, almost without noticing, you stop managing decline and start building capacity. The spine feels taller, the ground feels more stable, breath deepens without effort. There is space again inside the chest, inside the day, inside the future. Fear loosens because competence replaces it. The body remembers that it was designed not just to last, but to respond. Walking was never the problem. Walking was the invitation. What changes everything is what you add, the signals that say this body is still in dialogue with life, still expected to rise, carry, stabilize, adapt. When those signals become consistent, the cells respond with astonishing generosity. Repair outpaces damage, strength outpaces loss, clarity outpaces doubt. Aging does not ask permission, but neither does renewal. And when you choose to give your body clear, intelligent, respectful challenges, when you align science with intention, you are no longer waiting to see what time will take. You are actively shaping what it cannot. That is not denial of age. That is mastery of it.